If you liked the video, feel free to subscribe. It would really help the channel, and we have battle reports, boarding actions, and list videos every week. Thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by. This video is the winner of the first poll I put on the channel, Adeptus Custodes Tips and Tricks. I started with 10. I have many more. If the video does well, I will make part 2 and so on. The 10 for this video are axes or spears, how to build a list, Imperial Allies, know what you can kill, Grav-tanks or no Grav-tanks, what if I don't have any Grav-tanks, points win games, screening, staging, and which character do I choose? Now let's go on to the first one, axes or spears. Do I use a Guardian Spear or do I use the Castellan Axe? This question has came up a lot over the course of 10th edition. The Guardian Spear has 5 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 7, AP 2, damage 2. The Castellan Axe has 4 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 9, AP 1, damage 3. The answer is Guardian Spears 90% of the time. There is one unit and one detachment that I do put the Castellan Axes on pretty much 100% of the time now. Hitting on a 2+ with damage 3, the axes seem at first glance a good weapon. It is the other stats that make this weapon generally inferior to the Guardian Spears. The axe does have higher strength, but with strength 9 it really does not make much of a difference into the toughness 10 or toughness 12, which is why we're bringing high damage melee weapon in the first place. One less attack than the Guardian Spear for the trade-off of 3 damage would not be so bad until we add that AP 1. The Castellan Axe's damage 3 is perfect for killing Terminators and those 3 wound models. Wounding most of those profiles on a 2 or a 3+, the AP 1 is the killer. Terminators will be saving on a 3+ or even a 2+ with Armor of Content. Most vehicles in the game will be saving on a 3+ or a 4+ for those medium vehicles. The Guardian Spears have 1 less damage, but 1 more attack and 1 more AP. Now those same models are saving on a 4+. They are much more efficient at blending anything with a 3+ or a 4+ save. Space Marines or profiles with a T4 3+ save, dreads being charged by a unit of Custodes with Guardian Spears. And that one unit that I do like to put the Castellan Axes on are the Alaris Terminators in the Shield Host Detachment. I use it to hunt tough vehicles or units with a reduced damage modifier. Half damage or -1 damage, they still are damage 2. Then pair it with the Shield Host Detachment rule Martial Mastery to give the Castellan Axes an extra AP 1. Now at AP 2, damage 3, we can use this unit to challenge Catan or Deathwing Knights. If not, it would take 2 units with spears to reliably engage those damage reduction units. The Alaris can also reroll wounds into character, monster, and vehicle units, which really helps into those Catan. How to build a list. This will be a quick guide to building a Custodes list. I do have a list on the channel, How to Build a Custodes List, that goes into this in more detail. Our units are expensive since we are an elite army, which does make it easy to fill up a list with only 5 or 6 big Custodes units. I like to have 35 to 50% of my total list points in units who can reliably pressure and then hold objectives. I call these my primary units, such as Wardens and Custodian Guard. Next, I will use 25 to 40% of my total list points on units who can put damage into the opponent's army, and these are my attack units. And they can be Alaris and Venatari, the Custodian Guard again, or Caladius Grav-tanks. Then last, I will use the remaining points on utility and scoring units. It is tempting to take a bunch of big scary units. Those units of 4 sisters may not be flashy, but when we need to do a secondary, they will be a ray of light compared to the bottomless hole of using a 300-point Custodian Guard unit to cleanse an objective. Prosecutors, Witch Seekers, and Imperial Assassins make great units for this category. Imperial Allies, and what are they? Imperial Allies are units from the Imperial Agents Codex that can be used in Imperial Factions list as allies. 1,000 points, we can take 1 character unit, and that can be an assassin or one of the named Inquisitors, and then a retinue unit, which is a non-character unit. At 2,000 points, you can take 2 character units and 2 retinue units. Right now, the Calidus Assassin and Inquisitor Draxus are the best 2 Imperial Agents character units for the Custodes, adding a lot to a Custodes list. While I like the Subductor Squad as a retinue unit, it is not something we truly need in a list. more of a personal choice since the Subductor Squad has gained 15 points from the balance update, and this is an 11 model unit. 10 of them have the 4-up invulnerable save, great to hold the home objective and screen our back lines. The next one is know what you can kill. It may seem like a simple concept, but with our small unit numbers, we cannot afford to be bogged down in a combat with one unit for multiple turns. Test out some rolls by yourself against common unit profiles. Knowing what we can kill in one activation with one unit, or what we may need 2 units, or even to avoid until later in the game, is crucial knowledge for the Custodes. If we charge an enemy unit in hopes to kill it and then consolidate onto a nearby objective, it is a dice game of course, but having a rough idea of what our units can reliably kill will make a difference in how we approach situations during a game for the better. Grav-tanks or no Grav-tanks? If you have access to a 3D printer or don't mind third-party proxies, then I would say yes. There is nothing else we have access to in the Custodes range that has the reliable anti-tank. Even Knights do not have the same reliable guns. 4 shots, lethal hits against monsters and vehicles, hit on 2s, strength 12, AP 3, damage D6 plus 2, and then twin linked, so these things are quite reliable into monsters and vehicles. There are some good alt infantry builds that can be played without any armored support at all if you want to go with that option. And this is a unit GW would make a good amount of money if they made a plastic version. If you do want a real genuine model, eBay or new is an option. It is a fantastic unit for us, just a shame it is so hard to get access to for the average player. What do I use if I don't have any Grav-tanks? We do have a few options to use if we do not have the way overpriced Forge World Caladius Grav-tank. And that is overpriced with real dollars because this thing is crazy expensive. First option is to run an all infantry list. They can and do work, but they are harder to pilot since they have way less room for mistakes, movement being the most important part of that list. With no anti-tank, the opponent's guns will be in every shot lane. We do have a venerable Land Raider in the Codex that has 4 las cannons hitting on 2s, and that is a step up from the Space Marines Land Raiders who are hitting on 3s, with the ability to transport 6 Custodes. We also can bring in some Knight allies, the most popular being Canis Rex or the Armiger Warglaives, to give a Custodes list some anti-tank shooting with some more melee threat. Points win games. Another tip that may seem obvious, you would be surprised how many games I have lost and seen lost because the Custodes got kill happy. Try not to leave primary objectives unless doing so will net more points or take out an important enemy unit that will be a net gain in points or derail the enemy game plan. I know playing giant golden demigods is awesome, but bring some sisters. Psychonic units are our cheapest, thus best units for doing secondary actions or grabbing primary objectives without risking our big expensive Custodes units. Points win games. Bring some sisters, take a little less Custodes units, win those games. Or at least come out with a higher score. Next up is screening. We may only have a small amount of units, even so, screening is very important. And what is screening? It is making sure we have models set up so when the opponent brings in reserves, there is no room for them to bring them in somewhere that can gain them an advantage. Unless the opponent has a stratagem, units must come onto the board at least 9 inches away from any of our models. This is important the most around our home objective. We do not want to leave room for an enemy deep strike and then for it to shoot or charge our home objective in turn 2. Units in reserve must be onto the board by the end of round 3, unless it was a redeploy of a unit that was already on the board. Doing our best to take the time to make sure we have screened out any deep strikes until after turn 3 is important to us winning games. We have a small amount of units. Our turns are overall quicker than a larger model army. Take the advantage of being able to take a little more time when planning what to do with our units. Then we have staging. Staging is where we set up our units for future turns. With an average of 6 movement for our army, staging is quite important for us. We do not need to make a bunch of long bomb 9 to 12 inch charges turn 1 or turn 2 and use that Blade Champion's advance and charge ability turn 1 in hopes to get a big charge off. Our first and usually our second turn, we want to move our units up, even advancing them to get that extra movement. We want to get into good cover, even if we do not move the maximum distance. Custodes do much better charging than being charged into. With no access to fights first or damage reduction stratagems, we crumble to a lot of high damage or a lot of attacks at the same time. I use my first few turns getting my units set up so when the opponent gets on the objective or further up the map to do secondary actions, my units are ready to pounce with an easy 6 inches or less charge. And I'll have my units at full power or close to it since I did not put myself out in the open in hopes for a turn 1 or turn 2 9-inch charge. Fail it and then lose the unit in the opponent's turn, losing an expensive unit that did absolutely nothing in the game. So make sure you're not putting yourself out in danger to get a 9-inch charge just because that's probably not going to happen and then you'll be stuck there and then shot to death. Take the time to stage, wait for the enemy to get up to you, then make those charges a lot easier. And here is our last tip, which character do I take? Our best options is a Blade Champion. It does have 3 different weapon profiles, but the best one has 5 attacks, AP 3, damage 3 with devastating wounds on a 6 on the wound roll, once per game advance and charge for the unit, and all game reroll the charge roll for 110 points. Then we have Valerian. He is also AP 3, which is rare in our army in the melee. Incoming melee attacks for his whole unit are -1 AP, and he is also 110 points. And another unit that is usable, not quite as good as these other ones, is a Shield Captain in Alaris armor. Once per round, -1 CP to stratagems, and this is the only Alaris character unit which does bring it up a few pegs. It is hard to kill, it does have an ability to make all incoming damage 1 for a phase, and this one is 140 points. And these next characters are not the best, you can use them, but the other ones do give you a lot more to your units. The first one is a Shield Captain. The ability to use 2 Katas once per game is a little bit meh, and you can reduce the cost of a stratagem by 1 ZP once per round as well, same as the Alaris Shield Captain. And unlike the Shield Captain in Alaris, the units they can join have better options, such as the Blade Champion or Valerian. And then sadly, Trajan Valoris, his ability for his unit to ignore hit modifiers is not really that good. Moment Shackle does not really make a big difference in the game. Compared to the index, he is so weak it feels bad, and he is 140 points. He did go down by 10 points in the recent balance update, but that is not enough. And here are some situational characters. You can use them in different detachments. Shield Captain on Dawn Eagle can be used as a lone unit at 140 points, but the Virtus Praetors they can lead are way overcosted. 140 for 2, or 210 for 3. That is why when I take this unit, I usually just take him as a lone model. Then we have Alea, and she can work with a 10-man unit of Vigilators, but then it is starting to get to an actual Custodes infantry unit price. Then you add the Rhino that you want them driving around in, and that is up to 275 points. And that is getting a bit pricey for a unit of Sisters who can fight first, which is evidently the only unit we can fight first with now. And there is another character, the Knight Centura, and I would play her in the Null Maiden Vigil. Let's finish with some final thoughts. I did not go into full detail for some of these since I do have some full feature videos covering them on the channel. I do have a lot more tips and tricks for the Custodes. Hopefully this video does well enough to make a new series out of these. If you have any questions about any of these tips, or tips of your own, throw them in the comments. Let's spread the knowledge of our more experienced players with the Custodes Youngblood. Subscribe for weekly Warhammer 40K content, and we upload at least 3 times a week. Thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by.